There's a phrase by Eckhart Tolle, so powerful, that the mere act of hearing it sends the ego into absolute panic. I'm not talking about ordinary resistance. I'm talking about a visceral reaction, almost physical, like each word is a surgical incision, cutting through layers of self-deception that you've built over decades. And here's the most disturbing thing. If you feel this resistance, that's exactly the proof that the phrase is working. But before I reveal these words, which could change your perception forever, I need to prepare you for what's coming. Because what I'm about to share isn't spiritual theory, it's psychological surgery. Have you ever noticed how certain truths make you want to immediately close the video? As if a part of you knows that continuing to watch would be dangerous to your current identity. That part that resists, it has a name, and it's desperate for you not to discover what you truly are. Imagine for a moment that you discovered everything you believe to be yourself is merely a mental construct, an invisible armor that you've worn for so long, you've forgotten you're even wearing it. Now imagine someone showed up with a key capable of removing that armor, once and for all. Would your first reaction be relief or terror? If you're like most people, it would be pure terror. Because without that armor, who would you be? That's exactly what happens when the ego encounters absolute truth. It knows its survival is threatened. Tolle discovered something that spiritual masters took centuries to fully grasp. He found the exact words that expose the illusory nature of the fabricated self, and those words are like an X-ray of the soul. They show what's really happening behind all your thoughts, fears, and desires. But here's what almost no one tells you about spiritual awakening. It's not a gentle, gradual process, like many books suggest. It's more like being jolted awake in the middle of the night by a fire alarm. First comes the shock, then the confusion, and only then do you realize that the fire you thought was going to destroy you is actually burning only the chains that kept you bound. The phrase I'm about to reveal works exactly like that. It's the fire alarm of consciousness. And if you're here watching this video this far, it's because a deep part of you already knows. You need to hear this alarm. But before we get there, let me ask you a question. That will reveal a lot about your current state of consciousness. When you look in the mirror, who's looking back? Seems obvious, doesn't it? You are. But that answer is exactly where the deepest illusion of human existence resides. Because what you call you is actually a patchwork of memories, opinions, fears, desires, and stories that have accumulated over the years, like sediment at the bottom of a river. And the ego, that constant voice in your head, is the curator of this patchwork. It spends all day organizing, defending, and promoting this fabricated identity. But here's the secret that can shake all of that. The observer who's seeing this patchwork isn't part of it. Never has been. It's as if you've spent your entire life thinking you were the movie, when in reality, you're the screen on which the movie is being projected. The screen can't be hurt by the movie. It can't be changed by it. The screen simply is. And that perception, as simple as it seems, is exactly what the ego fears more than anything in the universe. Because if you realize you're the screen and not the movie, the entire power structure of the ego collapses instantly. All the internal drama stops. All unnecessary suffering reveals itself as exactly that, unnecessary. But the ego won't give up easily. It has sophisticated strategies to keep you identified with the movie. One of those strategies is to make you believe that questioning your identity is dangerous, that exploring these deep truths could drive you to madness or existential emptiness. In reality, it's exactly the opposite. It's remaining identified with the illusion that generates all the madness and emptiness you already know. The difference is that the madness of egoic identification is familiar. It's the madness you know. And the ego prefers known madness to unknown sanity. Now imagine I told you there's a 5-word phrase that can cut through decades of this mental programming in one fell swoop. 5 words that can instantly reveal the difference between who you really are and who you think you are. Would you have the courage to hear them? Or is a part of you already trying to find a reason to stop watching this video? If you feel that urge to escape, pay attention to it. Don't judge it, just observe it. Because that urge to escape is the ego trying to protect its territory. It's as if you're approaching the edge of a psychological precipice. And on the other side of that precipice is a version of you that you never imagined possible. a version free from the prison of constant thoughts, free from the need to defend an image, free from the fear that comes from identifying with something that is, by nature, temporary and fragile. But to get to the other side, you need to be willing to let go of the bars of the cage you built yourself, and those bars, as strange as it may seem, are made of everything you most proudly call mine. My personality, my opinion, my story, my suffering, my successes, my fears. I'm not saying these things are bad, or that you need to reject them. I'm saying you can stop identifying with them. It's the difference between having a personality and being a personality, between having thoughts and being your thoughts, between having emotions and being your emotions. And when you make that distinction, something extraordinary happens. You realize you've always been free. The prison was never real. You just forgot how to open the door. But here's what happens the exact moment you remember. The ego goes into full emergency mode. It mobilizes all its resources to convince you that you're making a terrible mistake. It whispers that you're losing your individuality, that you're becoming empty, that you're betraying who you really are. And it's at exactly that moment that you most need to hear the words Tolle discovered, because those words are like a mantra that cuts through all that confusion. They remind you of a truth so fundamental that your conditioned mind can't argue against it. But these words only work if you're truly ready to hear them. And being ready doesn't mean being comfortable. It means being willing to be uncomfortable in the name of truth. It means being willing to question not just what you think about the world, but what you think about WHO is thinking about the world. It's a level of questioning that goes far beyond philosophy or psychology. It's archaeology of consciousness. You're digging through layers and layers of conditioning until you reach the bedrock of existence, until you reach what was there before the first thought and what will be there after the last. And when you touch that bedrock, something within you simply knows. It's not a belief. It's not a theory. It's direct recognition. Like when you wake up from a dream and you immediately know you were dreaming. You don't need to analyze or prove it. It's obvious. Tolle's phrase creates this moment of waking up from the dream, of egoic identification. And once you wake up, you can no longer pretend you're asleep. This might sound liberating, and it is, but it can also be terrifying to the part of you that has built its entire life around the dream. That's why not everyone is ready to hear these words, not because they're complex or esoteric, but because they're simple and devastatingly clear. They leave no room for negotiation with the ego. They offer no half measures or diplomatic exits. They're like a mirror that shows exactly what's happening in your mind, without filters or embellishments. And if you've never truly seen yourself in the mirror of consciousness, this first glimpse can be shocking. You might realize you've spent decades living as if you were a character in a movie, that you're actually watching, as if you'd completely forgotten that there's someone behind the eyes who's watching all of this happen, that someone was never born and will never die, never wounded by any experience, and never inflated by any success, that someone is like the space where all your thoughts and emotions appear and disappear, and recognizing that space, recognizing yourself as that space, is what Tolle calls awakening. But the ego has a very specific reaction when this possibility approaches. It's almost as if it can smell freedom in the air, and knows its days are numbered. It's at this moment that it pulls out its most powerful weapon, the story that you need it to survive, the story that without it, you would be nothing. But here's the truth, it will never tell you. You've always been so much more than it could ever imagine, and the words I'm about to reveal will prove this to you in a way that leaves no doubt. These words are like a master key to the prison of the mind, and once you use them, there's no going back. You can try to ignore what you've discovered. You can try to return to your previous state, but it's like trying to forget you know how to read after learning the alphabet. The knowledge becomes part of your perceptual structure. It changes how you see everything, and this change, however subtle it may seem at first, eventually transforms your entire experience of being alive. Because when you stop identifying with the drama of the mind, all of life becomes lighter, more spacious, more real. The same events continue to happen, but you're no longer lost in them. You're watching them happen with the same serenity you watch clouds drifting across the sky. It's not indifference, it's freedom. The freedom to respond instead of merely react. the freedom to choose your inner response regardless of external circumstances, and it's precisely this freedom that the ego fears most, because the moment you realize you have this choice, its power over you breaks completely. It can no longer drag you into unnecessary dramas. It can no longer convince you that your imagined fears are urgent realities. You can still choose to engage with thoughts and emotions when it's useful, but now it's a conscious choice, not an unconscious compulsion. It's the difference between being pushed by the current of a river and choosing to swim in the direction you want to go. And the words I'm about to reveal are like learning to swim for the first time. Once you know how, you never forget. But before we get to these transformative words, I need to prepare you for a reaction that will likely happen the moment you hear them. Your mind will immediately try to analyze them, categorize them, or find reasons why they don't apply to your specific case. This is the ego's automatic reaction to any truth that threatens its supremacy. It's like a psychological immune system trying to reject information that could heal it. When this happens, and it will happen, just observe that reaction. Don't fight it. Don't judge it. Just notice that it's happening. Because the very act of observing that reaction is already a step outside of identification with it. It's already a movement toward the freedom these words can reveal. Are you ready to hear them? The phrase is this: you are not your thoughts. 5 simple words. 5 words that can end decades of unnecessary suffering in an instant. And if you felt resistance when you heard those words, if a part of you immediately thought, "But of course I am my thoughts. How could I not be?" then you've just witnessed the ego in action. You've just seen the very thing these words are exposing. Because notice what happened. You had a thought about not being your thoughts, and you automatically identified with that thought of resistance. It's as if the prison just protested against the key that can unlock it. But let's go deeper, much deeper. If you are not your thoughts, then who are you? This question might create a feeling of psychological vertigo, as if the ground of your identity has disappeared beneath your feet. And this vertigo is exactly the sign that you're approaching the truth. Imagine that your whole life you thought you were the radio announcer, when in reality you are the radio. The announcer comes and goes, but the radio remains. Thoughts are like different programs playing on the radio of your consciousness. Some are classical music, others are heavy metal, some are dramatized news reports, others are commercials trying to sell you something, but you were never any of those programs. You've always been the silent space where they all appear. Now here's where it gets interesting. The ego is basically a radio program that has convinced itself that it is the radio. And it spends all day trying to convince you of the same thing. It says, "I am you." There's a phrase by Eckhart Tolle so potent, so jarring, it sends the ego into a state of absolute panic. This isn't mild resistance. This is visceral, an almost physical reaction. It's like each word is a surgical incision, revealing the truth, slicing through layers of self-deception you've built over decades. And the most unsettling part, if you feel this resistance, it's precisely the proof that the phrase is working. This isn't just spiritual theory, it's psychological surgery. We're going to explore the deeply unsettling, yet ultimately liberating truth behind this powerful phrase. Prepare yourself for a journey into the core of your being. My fears are your fears. My anxieties are your anxieties. My story is your story. But that's like a character in a movie trying to convince the screen they are the same thing. The screen doesn't feel fear when the character is in danger. The screen doesn't feel sadness when the character suffers. The screen simply allows everything to unfold upon it, unaffected. And you, the real consciousness behind all your thoughts, are exactly like that screen. But here's what might shock you. You've always known this. On some deep level, you've always known there was something within you simply observing all the mental drama, something that remained calm even amidst the most intense emotional storms. You might have called it your inner voice, or your center, or simply a feeling that there's something more, but you never paid full attention to this silent presence because you were too busy identifying with the noise. It's like being at a noisy party and suddenly realizing there's always been a profound silence behind all the sound, a silence that was there before the party started and will be there after everyone's gone. This silence isn't emptiness. It's full, it's alive, it's conscious. And recognizing this silence as your true nature, that's what Tolle calls enlightenment. It's not something you achieve. It's something you recognize, something that's always been here, but the ego has a very specific strategy to prevent you from making this recognition. It keeps you addicted to the noise. It convinces you that silence is dangerous, that it's empty, that it's death. In reality, it's the opposite. The constant noise of the mind is a form of death, a death of presence, a death of peace, a death of connection with what is real. Silence isn't the absence of life, it's pure life, pure consciousness, pure being. And the resistance you might be feeling right now to these words is the ego fighting for its survival. It's saying, don't believe this. It's too abstract, too spiritualized. You need me to function in the real world. But that's the biggest lie it can tell you. The truth is, you function infinitely better in the world when you're not lost in egoic identification. You make clearer decisions. You have more authentic relationships. You feel a peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. Because you stop reacting from fear and conditioned patterns, you begin to respond from wisdom and presence. It's the difference between being a programmed robot and being a truly free human being. But to make this transition, you need to be willing to let go of the false identity. And that might feel like death to the ego. In reality, it's birth, the birth of your authentic nature. But let's get practical for a moment. How do you apply this in your daily life? First, start observing your thoughts as if they were clouds passing in the sky. Don't try to stop them. Don't try to change them. Just observe. When you observe a thought without identifying with it, something magical happens. The thought loses its power over you. It's like watching a horror movie. When you're lost in the story, you feel real fear. But when you remember it's just a movie, you can watch the most intense scenes with complete calmness. Second, whenever you catch yourself saying, I am nervous, or I am depressed, or I am anxious, change it to I am experiencing nervousness, or I am experiencing depression, or I am experiencing anxiety. This small change in language is revolutionary. It reminds you that you are the space where these experiences are happening, not the experiences themselves. Third, cultivate moments of deliberate mental silence, even if it's just for 30 seconds. Just stop and observe the space between thoughts. In the beginning, this space might seem minuscule, but with practice, you realize it's infinite, and that it's in this infinite space that you've always lived. Now, let me tell you something that might completely change your perspective on suffering. All psychological suffering comes from identification with thoughts. All of it. It's not the situation that makes you suffer. It's your mental interpretation of the situation. It's the story you tell yourself about what's happening. And that story always happens in thoughts. When you realize you are not your thoughts, you realize you can observe these stories without being dragged by them. It's like being on an emotional roller coaster, but suddenly remembering you can simply get off, that you were never obligated to stay on it. The roller coaster can keep running. Other people can choose to ride it, but you have the freedom to observe from afar, with compassion and serenity. This is the freedom Tolle is offering with these 5 simple words. But here's something that might surprise you. When you stop identifying with your thoughts, you don't become a cold or disconnected person. You become more human, more present, more capable of genuine love, because you stop loving from need and fear. You begin to love from abundance and presence. It's the difference between the love that says, I need you to complete me, and the love that says, I am complete, and I choose to share this completeness with you. One is based in the ego, the other is based in being. And when you love from being, there's no possessiveness, no jealousy, no fear of loss, because you know that what you truly are cannot be lost. You can lose relationships, you can lose possessions, you can lose social roles, but you cannot lose yourself, because you've discovered you are indestructible. Not your body, not your personality, not your story, but the consciousness that is aware of all these things. This consciousness never was born and will never die. It's like physical space, always present, always available, always whole. And recognizing this isn't a belief, it's direct experience. It's like asking someone, are you sure you're conscious right now? The answer is obvious. It's not a theory. It's a fact of experience. In the same way, when you truly observe yourself observing your thoughts, it becomes obvious there's something within you that is separate from those thoughts, something that was there before the first thought of your life, and will be there after the last something that has never been touched by any experience, and good or bad, something that is pure consciousness, pure being, pure presence, and that something is who you truly are. But let me give you an important warning. Knowing this intellectually is not the same as living from this understanding. The ego is very clever. He might take these ideas and turn them into just another mental concept, another spiritual identity to identify with. He might leave you thinking, now I'm someone who understands they're not their thoughts, I'm special, I'm enlightened. But that's just the ego wearing spiritual clothing. It's still identification with thoughts. Only now it's thoughts about not being thoughts. True freedom happens when you stop trying to become something and simply recognize what you already are. It's not an achievement, it's a relaxation. It's like stopping to search for your glasses when they're already on your face, and this recognition can happen right now, in this moment. It doesn't require years of practice or special preparation. It only requires that you pause for a moment and ask, who is aware of this moment? Who is aware of these thoughts? Who is aware of this search for who I am? The answer doesn't come in words, it comes as pure presence, as consciousness aware of itself. It's so simple the complex mind can't believe it. It's so close it seems impossible to find. It's so obvious it goes unnoticed. But when you touch this simplicity, your whole life reorganizes around it, not in a dramatic or destructive way, but naturally and harmoniously, like a river that suddenly remembers its natural direction and stops fighting against the rocks in its path. You stop fighting against life and begin to flow with it, not passively, but intelligently, responsively instead of reactively, and the people around you feel this shift, even if they can't explain what's different. There's a quality of presence in you that wasn't there before, a peace that doesn't depend on everything going well, a strength that doesn't come from resistance but from deep acceptance. This doesn't mean you become perfect or never have problems again. It means you change your relationship with problems. They cease being existential emergencies and become simply situations to be navigated with wisdom and presence. It's like the difference between being lost in a storm and having an inner compass that always points to true north. The weather might still be bad, but you're never lost again. And this inner compass is the awareness of your true nature. It's knowing beyond any doubt that you are not your thoughts, that you are the infinite peaceful space where all thoughts arise and disappear, that you are indestructible, untouchable, complete. You always were. You always will be. The only difference is that now you remember. And once you remember, you can't completely forget again. You might get distracted, you might temporarily lose yourself in egoic identification, but there's always a part of you that knows the way back home. Home isn't a place, it's a recognition. It's remembering who you always were behind all the masks and personas. It's returning to the sacred silence that never abandoned you, even when you abandoned it. And in that silence, you find everything you've always sought outside of yourself. Peace, love, completeness, purpose, meaning. Not as temporary experiences that come and go, but as your own fundamental nature, like the natural fragrance of consciousness when it recognizes itself. And maybe, just maybe, these 5 simple words have just reminded you of who you truly are. You are not your thoughts. You are the eternal, peaceful consciousness that is aware of them. You always were, and that can never be taken from you, because that is you.